Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome to my channel, Guilty Feet. I've got no rhythm. Today I'm going to do a book review. The book is not out yet. I was sent by the publishers, Jonathan Cape, I believe, an ARC, an advanced reader's copy of this book to review, and this is me reviewing it. The book comes out in hardback in the UK the 18th of September 2025. It is the new book by Ian McEwan called What We Can Know. I won't show, I can show you the cover of the book, but it doesn't have the title or the author's name on the cover of the book because it's an ARC. So that's the book, Ian McEwan, What We Can Know, out in hardback on September the 18th. I don't believe my review is supposed to be embargoed, so this is it, me giving you a review of the book. First of all, I want to express how grateful I am that we're getting new work from Ian McEwan. This is Britain's certainly top handful of novelists. I reviewed his last book 2 years ago on this channel. I'd forgotten that I'd done that and prepared all of his books that I've read, and I was going to go through and give you my history with Ian McEwan, and then I found out that I'd done that already in a video I called Me and McEwan. Clever, eh? Which I will link to below because I just watched it and I went through and gave my reviews and my experiences with all the books from the first visit that I read, which was Amsterdam, which won the Booker Prize in 1990, thereabouts, up to Lessons, which came out 2 years ago. I thought it was bloody good. So if you want to go back and see my history with Ian McEwan and my thoughts on all of his earlier books, please feel free. And at the end, I expressed my gratitude. I think before I reviewed Lessons, which I bought in hardback, I think Scott at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot reviewed it and had been quite meh on it, and I thought it was a return to form, but called a bit of a shaggy dog story. People cleverer than me might have called it a Bildungsroman, but I thought it was pretty darn good and enjoyed the reading of it very much. And I said at the time, maybe this is the last Ian McEwan we get. This is a man in his 70s, got nothing left to prove. He's won a Booker Prize. He's acknowledged as being one of the greatest living writers. What else? He hasn't received the Nobel Prize, although he may have done it at any point. His contemporary, and I think at least at one point they were friends, Ishiguro, won with a lifetime of fewer published works than McEwan. Fewer novels that have been made into films than McEwan. And I love Ishiguro, but if I was to look at the bodies of work next to each other, I think McEwan's might be more significant. Well, that's something you can discuss. Is McEwan more significant? And I didn't say better writer because that's irrelevant. Is McEwan more significant than Ishiguro? The two other names I would put as contemporaries of both those, one sadly we've lost, Martin Amis, and the other still writing, still producing incredible work, is Salman Rushdie. I think of all four of them as being roughly the same age, the same era, coming up together in the 80s. Maybe Rushdie's a little bit earlier. Rushdie won the Booker for Midnight's Children in 81 in Amsterdam. So McEwan, I think, probably only started publishing around about then, or maybe those first short story collections were in the mid 70s. Anyway, the point being, I don't know what the point is. Ian McEwan. Let's talk about him and his book, which I cannot remember the title of until I look at it, and it's called What We Can Know. I think a disappointing title, and I've become more critical of titles, and I just think What We Can Know is going to be one of those hard things to remember. When you look back at the body of McEwan's work, Enduring Love, Amsterdam is thing. It's got a book called Saturday, not great, and a book called Solar, but On Chesil Beach, that's a great title for a book. The Children's Act, great title for a book. What We Can Know is a title which will continue to evade me unless I'm actually looking at it. Perhaps more so because I don't have it on the cover of my version. Anyway, What We Can Know. I think also absolutely terrific, and I would highly recommend this. What we've got here is a kind of literary mystery set in 2119. So 100 years into the future, and it's a pretty grim vision of what has occurred in those 100 years. That we don't address the mass. So in 2119, the world has been flooded. There's been catastrophe caused by global warming. The entire global population has halved. But this is all post all those disasters. We're now in 21 time with some semblance of a society that we recognise. And our protagonist, a guy called Tom Metcalf, I believe, is a professor, a lecturer at university in English literature, and his singular obsession is a lost poem. I'll explain it a little bit more in a second. From 100 years ago, from 2014. So the book, the first half of the book at least, set in 2119, but constantly referring back to something that happened in 2014 and what they know of it in the future. So in a future where a world has changed and turned upside down and things have been lost and the internet is sketchy and the reality very different from what we know now, but things are preserved, things are archived, academic work is archived in a way that is recognizable, but perhaps harder to access. And Metcalf is obsessed with finding a poem that was written by a famous poet from the 21st century, the early 21st century, the time we live in, called Francis Blunder, and a poem he wrote for his wife, several years younger than him, called Vivian. And it's a poem cycle. Strictly speaking, a sonnet cycle, and it's a corona for Vivian. So McEwan goes into some detail, not a lot, but enough to pique one's interest. If you have been interested in literature and poetry, I did not know what a corona was. A corona is a corona meaning crown. Not a coincidence that this is a post-coronavirus novel. Same corona. The reason coronavirus is called coronavirus because it looked like a crown when you looked under the microscope. So there's that link. But a corona set of sonnets is a set of 15 sonnets. Sonnet, if you don't know what a sonnet is a strict form of verse with 14 lines. Each line has 10 syllables. Each line is in iambic pentameter. So da-dum, 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 da-dum. Da-dum, 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 iambic pentameter, where 2 syllables, the stress on the set, da-dum. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Is a classic, probably the only line of a sonnet I could memorize. But so a sonnet is 14 lines in iambic pentameter with a particular rhyme scheme, and a corona is a set of 15 sonnets where the 15th, the crown, it takes the first line of all the previous sonnets and creates its own sonnet. Okay, so that's this the literary poetic aspect at the heart of this. And back in 2014, back in the time that we're all from, Francis Blunder delivered on his wife Vivian's birthday this Corona for Vivian, a set of 15 sonnets that he'd written specifically for her. It was read aloud once at her birthday party and is lost to time. A very long roundabout way of getting to the heart of what the mystery is at the start of this. But if that intrigues you, if you like the idea of a mystery about a lost poem, then I think there's something here for you. If you like the idea of there being some kind of excitement around the world of academia, that actually the study, the archiving of things that are lost and trying to unpick the past and make sense of the messages that we receive, whether it's in correspondence and in this instance, because this is a story being told in 2119 about 2014, emails are archived and text messages and as well as postcards and writing and different versions of poems and correspondence are all available to the academic, but the poem remains lost. This corona, these 15 sonnets making up this poem cycle is lost. Francis Blunder said when he wrote it there were going to be no copies. He's destroyed all his notes, and he hands a physical hard copy at the party, or what we think, everything is told in what is supposed by these academics looking into the historical event, that it was handwritten on vellum, tied up and presented to Vivian with a bow. There were other people at this birthday party for Vivian. So there are people who were there on the night that the Corona for Vivian was read for its one and only time and presented to Vivian. And each of their lives becomes a point of investigation for our academic experts and detectives. And you know, the obsession or the interest or the imbuing of significance onto something that we do not have from a future which has been corrupted and changed and certainly different from the world we know and we live in. This is something from the future looking back to our time, post disaster, post everything bad that's going to happen because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, because of global pandemics, because of climate change. All these things have happened, and the protagonists in the story are looking back on the world we live in right now with an enormous amount of nostalgia for what has been lost. Now, if that's not the author trying to give us a message about the world we live in now, I'm not sure how much more clear he could be. It's a terrific literary mystery, if you like that kind of thing. The one that sort of sprang to mind was I Asked by Its Possession, which won the book prize at 1990. So I understand might have been the year or two after, it was 91, 92, with Paddy Clark in 93. I don't know. Anyway, that had, you know, this is a kind of literary mystery, but set in the present where they're looking back into the past, 17th century, 18th century, whatever it is. This is taking a different tack. Again, I have to look at it to remember the title. What We Can Know is to say, starting in 2119, looking back into the present. And that's the first half of the book. And then the second half of the book, we get, it was actually the second third. There's this, the first two thirds and the last third. And in the last third of the book, we switch POV, and instead of being from the perspective of our academic from 2119, we go back into the perspective of Vivian in the present day, or in 2014. And a lot of the things that have been investigated and assumed and discovered by our academics in the future, now we're getting the true story, or another story, Vivian's story, Vivian's perspective. And of course, there are truths that are never archived, that are not in text messages or in emails or written down or in drafts of poetry. There are experiences and real lives, and we get that from Vivian. What actually happened, who was actually, what the relationships were between the different people who were at that dinner party when the Corona for Vivian was read and presented to her. And it's a remarkable shift, and in many ways a revelation, as well as resolving the mystery of what the poem was and what happened to it. We also get a filling out of reality where the character that we're now talking about, Vivian, is no longer this idealized memory of a person in the academic's mind 100 years from now, but she is a real person with real life and an inner life and a history and regrets and loves, and I think, I don't know if I've said this before about McEwan. I think, I say this as a man about another man, but I think he is our greatest literary ventriloquist. I remember when I spoke about Sweet Tooth, an early novel by him that written from the perspective of a woman, that I'm not sure any of the contemporaries of whom I spoke about, even Salman Rushdie, who often writes women characters and from the perspective of women. I think McEwan may be the greater literary ventriloquist, but I would rather have that judgment from a woman reader and maybe even another woman writer than me, but that's my opinion for whatever it's worth, because that last third of the book from Vivian's perspective changes everything we knew, we thought we knew, or we thought we had learned or had uncovered through the words and the history, and that whatever was archived, remembered, we find out how some of that archive was corrupted. We find out how secrets were protected and preserved and buried and revealed, and it's just a delicious work of fiction. Do I think many people are going to read it? I'm not sure how many people read Lessons, which I thought was a significant. I said at the time, I think this is a significant work by McEwan. I think his previous novel, Machines Like Me, came out about the same time as Sugar is Clara and the Sun, and they were in conversation with each other, clearly, to my mind, and I think it probably got lost. I'm not sure anyone read Lessons, really. I don't know if anyone's going to read What We Can Know, because he's a man in his mid to late 70s, a white male author who I'm not sure how relevant a lot of the, maybe I'm too into the booktube world, how many of the people whose opinions I watch and value on booktube, I'm not sure how many of them have an interest in reading Ian McEwan and considering his place in the canon. But I think on its own, this is an immensely enjoyable novel. I think it has something to say about where we are now by adopting this perspective of 100 years from now. I think it's a fun literary mystery. I think it is a comment on our ambivalence and indifference to climate change and impending catastrophe. And I think it's told with wit and darkness. In his early career, Ian McEwan, sometimes called Ian Macabre, because he had a dark heart. His dark heart is still pumping out dark, blooded work, and I think What We Can Know is a great example of it. Ian McEwan's What We Can Know, out in the UK in hardback, September 18th. Thank you very much to the people at Jonathan Cape for selecting me to receive a copy, because I love Ian McEwan and I really like this. Take care, God bless, bye.